Welcome to another episode. My name is Dean Vassy. You can find me on X at hashtag Kangas, Instagram hashtag Kangaroos podcast. Tonight, I welcome to the show my Monday regular, Jesse Cardinal. Jesse, welcome to the show once again. Now we're here to review the performance against the Pies. Your thoughts on the game, Jesse? It looked pretty good for the first half, but it looks like Collingwood were just far too strong, and there's probably a reason why they're on top of the ladder.
Yeah, look, that first half I thought was pretty solid football. I think we were probably the better team in that first half, and we were unlucky. We just didn't have the ability to score. We made some silly errors. We should have probably been further ahead at half time. The third quarter, we were kind of lucky. I think they obviously blew us away in the fourth. They could have easily blown us away in the third. They missed, like 8 behinds or something.
Yeah, 3 goals, 8. Yeah.
Yeah, they could have blown us away in that quarter. The second half, we were pretty poor. Look, some positives to take out of it, some individual performances that were really good. I can see people from both sides of the argument. You know, some people come out very emotional and been really furious with what we put out. And some people have come out and applauded it to a degree. So, look, as I said, I could see both sides of the argument. But ultimately, it's another loss.
Just to go to the style we played as well, Jesse. David King was a little critical after the game. 64 marks up till halftime, uncontested marks, and it's not a week-by-week thing that we do this, but it was effective. Got us to halftime lead against the leading leaders, and you even said yourself we probably should have been even further in front. And I guess good sides adjust, and the Pies became more aggressive and played a lot faster and couldn't keep up in the end. I mean, we let Nick Dacos do whatever he wanted in the second half. What were your thoughts on the style that we played?
Look, I didn't hate it. I thought it was something a bit different. I think we've been critical of us at times where we haven't really had a game style. And you could definitely see what we were trying to execute on the weekend. I didn't hate it. I actually didn't hate it. I thought we moved the ball quite methodically. It's not like we didn't score. We were able to put a score on up until the last quarter. Ultimately, they tried something different. I applaud them for trying something different. I don't necessarily hate it. It'll be interesting to see if we play like that most weeks or if it was something they were just trying out. But it's not ultimately what cost us the game. That's not what cost us the game. It was something they tried, and I don't have a problem with that. Because, look, we kicked around a lot, but we didn't turn the ball over from our short kicking. Our short kicking was safe. It was a safe game style. Yes, it means that you're playing a bit more conservative, but most of Collingwood's score in the first half was from turnover. And if you look at the turnovers, they were the ones where we just tried to take an expansive kick because we just can't kick the ball. We put ourselves under pressure. So I think that the style is there a little bit to negate that, which isn't necessarily a long-term strategy you want, but, short-term.
It seemed to work. It's the only way we were going to be competitive against them. Jesse, I know. Look, they're on top of the ladder for a reason. They showed that in the second half, and they've shown in the first 10 or 11 rounds of the season. I don't even know how many we've played now. I mean, they look like they're the best team in the competition by a fair way at this moment. But a lot of things can change coming up to finals. It's about how you finish the season rather than how you start it. So, yeah, I mean, are you concerned that there was 42 less tackles for the game, and the pressure rating was around the 170s? Probably because we were just trying to play keepings off in the first half, so pressure rating was quite small. But 42 less tackles. That's a fair bit, isn't it?
That is the most disgraceful thing about the game. It's a hard one to place because, like last week, you see what happens when we tackle. Look, we have always been a poor tackling team, and we've always been a poor tackling inside 50 team, and we just continue that trend. We refuse to tackle, and that's with the opposition. Now, we had more possession for at least the first half. You'd have to tell me if that changed in the second half. I assume it would have.
Yeah, it did. We had 56. Oh, just on that, sorry to cut you off, Jesse. 56 more possessions in the first half. Collingwood had 29 more in the second half. So
yeah, okay. Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense. I think the main one for me is just that it didn't look like we were. I don't think we have enough players who apply themselves enough defensively. We've got a lot of people who want to be showboats and think they were high draft picks and just think they can cruise out of the midfield and do what they need to do. There's not enough people who are prepared to put a lot of people have been critical of Wardlaw's game, and he didn't have a great game. Let's be honest, he didn't have a great game, but you can't have a go at him trying. And at least every single time he goes out there, he's going to try. There's a lot of people out there who didn't lay a tackle. Now, I don't have an issue with a player not laying a tackle if they have an absolute ripping game offensively, or they're able to do a lot of things pressure-wise, and it doesn't really, have an impact. But there's a lot of players out there who didn't really do anything, and the bare minimum they could have done is decided to bloody lay a tackle, and they didn't want to do that. So I think that says a lot about our players. I think a lot of them feel safe because I don't think we've had selection. I don't think we've been credible at the selection. We're not. We just seem to be playing safe and playing favourites a little bit. That's what it looks like a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes reputations can count for a fair bit. And, it's only been a couple of games this year where we've sort of made big, name changes. Like a Bailey Scott's probably been dropped, and rightfully so. He's not really dominating the VFL. And maybe one or two others during the course of the year. But, you look at the tackle count. Costanti had our most with 7, a forward. And Paul Curtis had 5. Is another forward. The midfield didn't. Look, unless Sherry is doing everything in there, it's like in the second half he got quelled a little bit by Darcy Cameron. They probably split in the second half after a dominant first half. It almost feels like they rely too much on Sherry, and
they do.
They just sit too much on the outside. They don't. Look, unless Sherry's winning the clearance, or not so much a clearance, going in and getting the ball for them, they sort of sit back and they lose the clearance far too easily, Jesse.
Yeah, look, he was the most dominant player on the ground at halftime. I think he was on 92 champion data points or something like that. He ended the game with 130. So I think Cameron, I heard him after the game doing an interview, and he pretty much said that he was almost tagging Tristan after the dominant first half. Once he drifted out of the game, we lose a lot of the contested ball winning ability. We lose a lot. Look, one of my mates, my Essendon mate, did pull me up on something. I went pretty hard on LDU after the game, obviously calling out for Phillips. He did make a fair point. I think LDU is actually over the last 5 games leading the comp for contested ball. I didn't know. I didn't know that. That's not a stat that I knew. He called that out. He's a stats man. He made me aware of that. So while when I was sitting there, I was with a Collingwood mate watching the game, and he kind of described LDU as really good until he gets the ball, and then he's a bit like a deer in the headlights this year. And I think that's a good way of describing him. I think he puts in the effort to win the ball, but then he's just panicking for whatever reason. The one thing I will say is I do think we are still a much better team than we were last year. I think we've had 2.5 wins. Our percentage is 25% better than it has been over the last 5 years at the same point. So I think we are a better side. We could have had an extra win or so along the way. And I think we've done it on the back of Sheasel and LDU, who were our 2 best players, having average years. I say average. I don't think they've been terrible, but they've had average years, which has meant that if all of a sudden they could play like they did the second half of last year, I think we would be winning a lot of games, because I think there's a lot of other players who have stood up, and we should try and recognise those players. But there has been some players who are also being gifted games.
We might as well talk about LDU. I was going to save him for a bit later, but while you're talking about him there, now there's. I want to compare him to Nick Dacos. Now, Nick Dacos, second half, 28 touches, 38 possessions, probably the best player in the comp. This is the level that we're hoping LDU can come, because at the moment, he's a good player. 26 touches, you went through his stats, 12 contested. But we want him to take his game to that next level, because he's got the potential, hasn't he, Jesse? And he just sort of seems to play good games every week without being that player that's going to win us a game at the moment. Whereas
Yeah.
Nick Dacos, he showed tremendous leadership and he put the team on his back in that second half. He was unbelievable. Look, we didn't put much pressure on him.
I'll actually make another comparison. Ned Long, who played all four
he
quarters
was
for them,
fantastic. Yeah.
he how many tackles did he lay? 10, 12?
I will find that for you in a sec. 14.
14. He laid 14 tackles, and a lot of people praised Dacos and said he was best on ground. He wasn't best on ground in my eyes. I think he got a lot of. I'm not deducting from Dacos. I don't want to sound like I'm deducting from him. I have him in my top 3 players in the comp. His impact is huge, but he can also sheepdog, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. He's been out a little bit of form. He's been injured a little bit, but he was getting a lot of cheap pill. But you've got to put yourself in that position to get the cheap pill, to run behind a player, get it. I mean, from a player rating perspective, I think he was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th highest on the ground. Super coach wise or champion data, he was behind. He was like 10th on the ground. I mean, ultimately, coaches votes wise, he got 8, which so did Elliott and Ned Long though. So. I actually think Ned Long is a player that some of our midfielders should look at because he had a very strong game. 29 disposals going at nearly 80% efficiency. He had, 2 goal assists, 15 score involvements, 30 pressure acts, and 14 tackles. Like that's
a good standard.
That just shows effort. It just shows someone who's hungry and cares and wants to try. I think, look, to the point you were just making a moment ago, I know I just pivoted, but on the point of LDU particularly, I was looking at his stats earlier today while I was doing my little, breakdown of Sheasel in particular. And one of the things that I found that I thought was really interesting was just where he is at compared to some of his previous years. So I'll just rate him out some stats. From a player rating perspective, he is lower than he was last year, the year before that, and the year before that. So he's on 12.1 is his average this year. He's been 13.6, 15.7, and 15.4 the last 3 years. So he's down that. If you don't like that, you can use champion data points. Again, he is averaging 95, down from 109, 113, 101. So he's down on that. Coaches' votes, he's averaging less than he did in any year apart from the first 2 years of his career. He is down on most statistics. The only one that he's still pretty decent on is his clearances. His clearances are still, pretty high. They're on about par. But it's just, and his tackling is still pretty decent. But it's just his impact. I think that's the main one for me. His goal average is still pretty poor at 0.3 a game. Last year, one of the things we liked is that he was able to get forward. He was able to average some more goals. I think he was up to nearly half a goal a game. And second half of the year, I think he was averaging a goal a game. But his goal assists are down. His score involvements haven't improved. He has gone backwards, not by 1 year, but by 2 years. He's back to where he was probably 2022. So it's just a really interesting one, and I think, as I said, silver lining is that he is playing. He at his best is our best player, and he is playing well under himself. And I think that when you take into account that Sheasel is also doing that, it kind of has a bit of a silver lining, which is that we are a better team than we have been. And I think that means that other players are stepping in and doing a lot more. And if they can get their act together, it's going to make a massive difference.
Do you think with LDU, he looks like a player to me, he's comfortable with where he's at? I don't know if the coaches are challenging him. Look, this is what we think you can do better than what you're doing, because he seems to be doing. He seems to be coasting in the second gear at the moment, is what I'm saying. Do you think that's the case at the moment?
No, it is. No, spot on. I think, look, against Richmond, he coasted through that game, and then he showed up in the second half, especially in the last quarter, and was able to get a lot of clearance and help us win the game. He does look like he's coasting. He looks comfortable. He doesn't look like someone that should be being paid. And look, the money is what it is. You know, it would be massively front ended. I'm not overly concerned about paying someone that much money. It's more, it is always going to sit in my mind that would it have been better to have let him go and take the draft capital and then see what you can get from a tools perspective. Now, I'm not saying I want to do that, but I also don't know how else we're going to solve our midfield problem. He does look like he is coasting to mine, but I also think there's something going on because I reckon I've noticed at least once per game he gets the ball, he does something stupid with it, and he slaps himself in the head straight away. Like he just puts his hand in his.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah,
like he's doing it every single game. He just does this thing where it's just like he knows straight away. So I think he's just second guessing himself. I think he's doing the same thing as Sheasel, which is they're second guessing themselves on their disposal, and thus they're just not as impactful. Now it's not that he's having a horrible year, LDU. And I think that his last few weeks have been better, but he definitely isn't our. There's massive room for improvement, and I think he needs to have a massive second half of the year.
Almost playing like a player that signed a 7-year contract there, Jesse. But
unfortunately,
look, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what you have to do to keep these types of players. All right, we'll go to Harry Sheasel. He's probably another player that's come in under a bit of scrutiny the last couple of weeks. It seems like the Kane Corns thing has probably affected him. He even said that himself. Talking to Hamish McLaughlin the other week, he sort of said it did affect him. He looks like a player that is he's playing like a player that is 20 years old, and these things do affect him. And we always forget how young he is, and that the standards have been so high in the first 2 years that he probably hasn't been to the level of that at the moment. I mean, there's not much else he could do. Like he's got to work his way through it, doesn't he?
He does. His is a really interesting case. So I broke down his stats today on one of my posts, and that was on the back of having a chat with a few of the super coaches that I follow and I talk to, and they were talking about what the hell do we do with Harry Sheasel, and they were kind of focusing on the role and saying the role's terrible. Yes, it made Caleb Daniels super coach relevant again, but what the hell do we do with Harry Sheasel? I went through it and I broke down the stats a little bit more, and I found it really, really fascinating in terms of, his impact on games. So last year he moved into the midfield. He scored champion data points: 117, 119, 129, 120, 117, 103, 141, 75, 138, 160, 105, 122. Yeah, so very, very, very good.
Pretty good.
Like ranked top 4 or 5 players in the comp. That was with an average of 35 to 50% CBA most weeks. Some weeks he went over that, some weeks he went under that, but for most part it was 35 to 50. This year he's played 3 games where he was down back, and he got 135, 120, and 101. So yeah, look, that's awesome. He had 3 games where he got, in the games that he got more than 30% CBA, he had, decentish scores. So 86, 102, 106, 102, 81. So decent, not as good as last year, but still decent scores. And then there's the game on the weekend. So he played on the weekend 99% as a forward. It was the most bizarre choice of decision that I've ever seen. Now, I know that's crazy because I said, why don't we give him the forward line? He was drafted as a forward, Toby Green-esque. I understand that, but I think that's the worst place to put him when he's out of form. So when he's out of form, you put him in the graveyard forward line. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't have a problem with him playing off the half back line. That is what it is. But in terms of his highest impact games, and we'll go by player rating because I think that's going to be more relevant. In terms of his most impactful games this year, apart from one game where he was playing 100% down back, and he actually had a really good game, which I think was the Port Adelaide one. No, sorry, it was the week after that, I believe, where he had 30 disposals, 9 were contested. He had he only had 1 score involvement, sure, but from a player rating perspective, he was able to be very good defensively. He did a lot of good things. Other than that, the games that he's had his best games for, 45% CBA, 72% CBA, and probably 52% CBA. So the mark for mine is when he plays a game that's probably between 40 and 60% as a midfielder. Yes, he isn't having the score involvements that he used to last year, because I think second half of the year last year he was averaging a goal a game. He was averaging a goal assist a game. Well, I think I said last year him and Bontempelli and I think Isaac Heaney were the only players in the competition who were averaging 10 contested possessions, a goal and a goal assist. Like, it was obscene. Statistically, for the last 4 to 5 weeks of the year, he was the best 3 players in the comp. So he's not having that impact, but he's still having an impact in the middle. They're still decent games. It is beyond me that on the weekend against Collingwood, they played him exclusively as a forward. It just didn't. It just didn't make sense to me at all.
Strange.
It is weird. I said today, it's almost like they're trying to cater for the fact that we have 40,000 midfielders, and I just don't think you can be catering when you have Harry Sheezel in your team. Like we talked about it in the Richmond game, where and someone made a point of this today. Actually, someone was really good on X, where they said the biggest thing that they've noticed is that our CBAs aren't consistent. So every week it changes, and that's fine. You get fluctuations. Someone's not feeling as fit. You try things around the matchups, etc. But for the most part, the matchups are pretty consistent, as in terms of how you're going in. Last week against Richmond, LDU had 59%, Simpkin 56, Powell 56, Parker 48, Wardlaw 44, Sheezel 30, Colby McKercher 7. All right. And then the week after against Collingwood, LDU's back up to 78%. You've got Parker at 67%. You've gone Simpkin 59, Wardlaw 48. Then you've got Tom Powell at 22, McKercher at 19, which I liked, and then Sheezel at 7. It's just weird for mine.
Yeah.
They're still exploring the mix. I understand that, but I can't see a good when you're giving Wardlaw less than 50%, when you're giving Colby 20%, that's a tick for mine because we're actually getting him in there a bit more and seeing a bit of a different thing. But when you're giving Sheezel less than 10%, when you're giving Wardlaw less than 50%, and you're giving Parker nearly 70%, it's not the right mix for mine. What are we trying to do?
Yeah, Parker's the interesting one because he seems to be getting a lot of CBAs at the moment. I don't think he's the future in that midfield.
No.
As far as I understand, he was recruited
forward.
Yeah, play forward and pinch hit in the midfield if we are struggling to develop those guys. And at the moment, if he's not getting the most, Tristan Sherry, then it's LDU generally, and then it's Parker. Players are getting squeezed out. Like Wardlaw should be at least getting 18.
100%. Like Parker only had 16 disposals from all of that CBA. I think from a clearance perspective, look, LDU had the 7. Simpkin had the 7 from his. I think he held up his side of the thing. Sheezel had 5 clearances. He was our 4th highest. Now McKercher was the next one, and then Powell was the next one. I think Parker had 1 clearance for the game. Now it looked like he was trying to play a bit more of a defensive role. I get that, and Sheezel was looking like in the first half he was almost tagging Dacos or playing a defensive role on Dacos. That both of those players, I just can't see why you would give them more than 20-30%. They should be playing off that forward flank, drifting into the contest to play at the stoppages, but in the centre bounce, I just think we're wasting time on players that. I just think we've got too many midfielders. I know we've said it so many times, and we can't
say it every week.
and it's hard to sit here and go, well, which one are you going to get rid of, or which one are you going to drop from the team? Because I think we all want Phillips desperately in, but tell me who you drop from this team because I'm already struggling. I'm struggling to work out how. I tried to do a team this week for the West Coast game, and I can't fit everyone in that I want in because it feels weird to drop one of those midfielders. But I just don't. I think we're trying to make midfielders play positions that they can't play.
I mean, Tom Powell, I noticed he spent a fair bit of time on the wing, which is not a bad role for him. He had 28 touches, I think, for the game. Wasn't overly impactful, but I thought that might be a role for him for the next few weeks. I
don't mind Powell on the outside. I think Powell's proven because
he's an outside player.
Yeah, I think Powell's proven. The game time that he has got in the middle, like I think he had a good game against Richmond. He's had some good games when he gets bulk CBAs and he's able to win the clearance, be effective with it. He's able to score goals. He scored a goal on the weekend, obviously, against Collingwood. Powell's an interesting one. Statistically, he is up on last year. He's having a better year this year. He's already got more coaches' votes than he has, I think, in the rest of his career. I think Powell is a victim of a little bit of the fact that he gets moved around the same as everyone else, but they don't notice that.
Yeah.
But I actually think that Powell's had a decent year. Like, I think on player rating, it was Sherry, Curtis, Aldiu, Simpkin, and then Powell. And I think from a champion data perspective, it was Sherry, Sheasel, Aldiu, Daniel, and Powell. So I actually think that he's had a decent year without being a superstar, but I think his trajectory is still not terrible.
Yeah, no, look, his last couple of weeks have been a lot better because there's a period there for about 3 or 4 weeks where he was middling. He was being quite average.
He's got the fourth most coaches' votes for us this year.
Oh, well, there you go. So he probably would be in their top 5 of the best and fairest, to be honest with you.
Like the most is Sherry with 49, then Zohar's got 13, Comden 11, Powell 9.
Yes, there's a lot more questions to come in that second half of the year. I'd still like to see Will Phillips, but we'll talk a bit more about him later. We'll talk about the back line now, and we need to lock down small defender. But we've got a lot of injuries there, Jesse. Seems to be the only part of the ground we do have injuries. Archer out for at least another month. Bergman out for the year, along with Darcy Tucker. Josh Goda might be deceased for all we know. Not sure where this leaves us, but it only leaves us with Luke McDonald and Aiden Core as our small defenders. And Aiden Core shouldn't be playing as small defenders, which means players like Jamie Elliott are killing us right now.
Yeah, we had no answer for Elliott. I don't even know who was playing on him.
Well, that's I had to watch that goal that kicked in the third. There was no one near him. I had to watch that again because...
That was Caleb Daniel, I think, on that occasion.
Oh, well, they were communicating to each other, but in the end, neither of them did nothing.
Yeah. I think that was... Yeah, spot on.
Well, it's both their faults, really.
Yeah.
They did nothing. Like, Aiden Core just stood there, watched the ball and watched the play, and Caleb Daniel was... I'm not too sure what he was doing as well. He's standing next to him.
No one played on him. It's a worry. Our best defender at the moment is over the last 2 to 3 weeks is Riley Hardman.
Look, he's a big positive at the moment, Jesse.
He was the main positive. Him and you know what? Charlie Comden's had sneakily.
Yeah, I think he's been solid.
He's had 11 coaches' votes. I actually think that his last probably month, he's been good. I think he started the year poorly. I think he was victim to the fact that he had Logan Core around him who were playing terribly. I actually think he looks a lot better in the side when you've got Toby Pink playing a more defensive role. So I think Comden's last month's been good. But realistically, the only positive of our backline is Riley Hardman. And I think that's an indictment on the coaching group that they didn't get him in earlier and that they thought Darcy Tucker was the answer.
28 disposals, 801 metres gained. He's got a beautiful left foot, 82% disposal efficiency, 4 scoring involvements, 10 marks.
Well, even the week before against Richmond, though, those 2 kicks penetrating in the third quarter to Larky and the other one that landed in the pocket. We
found something. Yeah, we have found something there. So that's
there was. I think the main one for me on the weekend was that defensive effort where it got pulled into the. I think it was in. would have been the second quarter, I think, where the ball went into the Collingwood forward line, and he was against two players, and he was able to negate the ball. He just does things well defensively. You can tell he's a defender. I've said that the last few weeks, but his offensive game is sneakily good. We found a player there, and I think that shows that we need to be giving the players from that draft pool, which was a draft where we had 4 first-round draft picks, that we need to give them games.
Yeah, well, I've seen, we'll talk about the reserves as well, but I've seen Zane Dersman was playing the halfback flank as well on the weekend, started getting a few touches. Might be a position for him in the future because we kind of need a small mid-sized defender right now, Jesse, and it doesn't sound like we're going to draft one tomorrow, but I wouldn't put too much importance on a mid-season draft pick anyway.
No, because we're pretty crap at doing it.
I mean, not in saying that, not many really work out. You might find a role player if you.
Yeah, I reckon maybe on average 1 or 2 out of 10 to 20 a year work out.
Yeah, I'd almost rather see a mid-season trade period rather than this.
I think everyone would. Imagine being Essendon at the moment. You'd absolutely kill for a mid-season trade period.
Well, we could give him Bryn Teakle for a second rounder or something.
That's the thing. Or even a loan system like they have in the NPL or something like that. Like, I don't hate that because you've got a lot of players who are just rotting away at the top clubs in the seconds who are juniors who could get a game at AFL at another club just for 6 months, 12 months, etc., pay their wage. I think there's a lot of different options and they need to have a look at them because it isn't particularly fair if you've got a lot of very unlucky injuries and now you're relying on mid-season draft to hopefully have enough players to play a game of football on the weekend. I think there's something wrong with the system when it comes to that.
No, it's a waste of time. They're going to have 4 picks tomorrow, I think, Essendon, and what's the point? You're not going to get anyone. You might, if you get one decent one out of that, you're probably doing okay.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely talk more about that. What do you think of Caleb Daniel at the moment, Jesse? Jimmy Bartel is quite strong, sort of saying he needs to change positions. He's not been effective enough in the back line. He doesn't do much defensively. He did have 30 touches for the game.
How many kick-ins?
Yeah, and that's what I was just about to say. I think he had how many points they kicked? They kicked 18, so probably 15 of them you'd have to say were probably kick-ins. Is it time for maybe something a bit different and maybe we give him a different role up the field, maybe on a wing or half forward even?
I still think that there's a wing slot there that's open and that we haven't filled yet. There's an argument, would you rather him on the wing and move a Colby McKercher back to the half-back line to get ball or have O'Sullivan as opposed to those two drifting up on the wing? There's an option there. Look, I still don't hate him. I think he did a couple of really good kicks on the weekend. I think he had a bad start to the year, but I think the last couple of weeks he's recovered. People are very critical of him. And I understand why. I understand what he's associated with and around the whole draft picks and like all of that. But he's in the team. He's playing football. I think if we hyper focus on him being the problem at the moment, then we're looking away from some other glaring issues that I think we should be solving first. Because if let's just say you dropped him for the team, who takes his spot?
No, we don't have anyone at the moment.
There we go. And that's the thing. Like he comes out of the team, we have to play one of our midfielders at halfback. Which is fine, but
Sheasel, yeah, probably Sheasel or something like that. So, Dylan Stevens though on the other wing has really stepped up in the last month. Talk about that pivotal moment on the wing where it was a 50-50 ball and he really put his head over the ball and won a free kick. I don't think he would have done it a month ago. He consistently runs the most kilometres in a game. He's averaging 22 possessions a game the last 4 weeks, working hard up and down the wing defensively and offensively. I think he's been a real shining light in the last month, Jesse.
God, you're not talking to his greatest fan. Look, I'm the one who hyper focuses on the moment where Quaynor absolutely butchers a kick to him, and he.
That's right.
And I think he felt bad. I think he felt bad and decided to proceed to kick it out in the full sideways with no player. That is the worst thing that I've ever seen on a football field. It is the stupid. Like there was no one from our team within 200 meters of that. He just turned around, looked at the boundary, and thought, "I'm going to kick this." out in the full from
I
30
didn't even
metres.
land on the full. It just went on the wing where there's no players there. I think a bounce towards the boundary
Look-
line, but it
like,
stayed
well,
in. So.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what he was doing.
It was a good
Yeah.
tackle though, leading up to it. So,
I'll put it this way: from a output perspective, he is statistically no better than he has been at any other point in his career.
Mm.
So,
fair.
player rating, champion data, he's the same or not lower than his other best years, which were at the Swans. I think that he is safe at the moment in the team because Bailey Scott has decided to become terrible, and he is, for the most part, having a decent patch of 3 or 4 weeks where he's getting a lot of the pill. He's being a bit harder at it. I'm just going to be honest. This is this personal opinion only. I still don't rate him, and I would rather any other player playing on that wing.
Besides him,
Besides him, and
okay.
Bailey Scott at the moment, and Darcy Tucker.
Oh well, Darcy. Might as well talk about Darcy Tucker. He's out for the year, Jesse, with a
Oh,
back
what a-
injury. The club have come out with one sentence about him. Oh, he's done his back. He's out for the year. I found that a bit bizarre. Like, what's wrong with his back?
Yeah. It's
Is it
weird.
broken or is it? Like, I don't know. Is he? Can he walk? Or it said nothing about.
It was
that.
very weird.
It was a
but-
late withdrawal too. Like
but
in a game.
In all honesty, that second mid-season pick that we get has a 50% chance of being a better player than him in my mind.
Have you seen Brady Rawlings' track record, Jesse? Like, I don't know.
He's due.
Oh yeah.
Look, I think the thing with Stevens for me is I see a ceiling, and I just would, to your point earlier, I would rather Tom Powell on the wing.
Well, fair enough.
That's just me personally. I don't. I can understand why he's in the team, and I'm not saying we need to drop him, but assuming that we fix some of the other issues in terms of dropping some of the other players, he still doesn't do much for me personally.
No, that's
But
fair
I
enough.
mean, but I am in the minority on that, and I accept that.
Look, he has improved in the last month. I don't know how much more of a ceiling he's got, to be honest with you, past this. But yeah, look, it's a big improvement for where he was at, so, which is probably saying something. I'm not too sure. So, look, he's we don't have many options on the wing at the moment either. So yeah, that's just the way it's going because best wingman from last year, or the last couple of years, has decided, like you said,
Does not be able to play football anymore.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. He's forgotten how to play. So. Only at North Melbourne can we do that. Then we'll go to forward line. Now, it's good to have Paul Curtis back. Fell away in the second half. I think he only had 2 possessions in the second half. But
Jeez, he looked dangerous.
He looked our second most threatening forward behind Zerha on the weekend, didn't he?
He looked dangerous early. He just looked a little bit scratchy, which you'd expect, given the fact that he's been out for 3 weeks. I still think he did some decent stuff with it. I mean, what did he kick? He kicked... It was just the 1 goal, was it?
Yeah, 1 goal, 1, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'll get it
I'm just bringing it back up. I had the years.
Yeah, 1 goal, 1 assist, 4 scoring involvements, so not bad.
Yeah, I think
going back.
Yeah, look, I thought it was a decent enough game back. I mean, like I said, ultimately 4 score involvements, 1 goal assist, 1 goal, 1. Did enough for mine. Had the 5 tackles, like we said. Look, he'll just get better. It was the only game this year that he hasn't kicked at least 2 goals.
No, that's right.
And he's coming back over a 3-week layout. He should kick 10 against West Coast.
Oh, yeah, he'll have a big game.
And to be fair to him, earlier this year, he was the only real forward because Zerha decided to go missing. And to be very, very fair to Zerha, he's actually been pretty good the last few weeks.
He has. Yeah, look, he took that really nice contested mark, and he looked like he was going to take a few marks. It was the only way we looked like we were going to score, to be honest with you, Jesse, if someone took a big pack mark, because they set up so well. Their system was just set up really well defensively. We couldn't penetrate. We weren't good enough.
Well, I'll give you
Go on.
I'll give you an interesting one around Zerha because this is another one I was looking at today. Statistically, right now, he's got the best player rating of his career. Champion Data has him ranked the highest of his career. His average coach's vote per game is 1.18, which is the highest of his career, but almost double. His disposals, are pretty much, are down, but his goals and his tackles are down, which is still something I want. But his goal average this year is 2 goals a game. Like the next best was 1.7 back in 2022. I was very critical of Zohar pre-season. I called him lazy. I said he wasn't tackling enough. And for the first few weeks of this year, I have to give him some credit. His last month in particular, I think he's been pretty good. He's been good. He's been our best forward.
Oh, yeah, easily. Look,
has he benefited from the fact that we have 3 tools there?
Yeah, well, might as well talk about that. What do you think of the?
I don't like it.
Yeah, it looks a bit slow, doesn't it? Josh Dacos just rebounded everything with these.
I don't have an issue with playing 3 tall forwards if you have smalls who are quick and are going to tackle and apply pressure. Yeah. Constanti isn't quick. He's not quick.
No, he's not.
So there's no one down there who's applying any pressure, who's quick, who looks dangerous. There's no one keeping it in there. So it means that those 3 tools are just leaking the ball out. The problem is, but with those tools in, I think it does make Zerha look more dangerous. That's the trade-off, which is what when Zerha is playing as the 3rd tool, and you have Darling and Larky, for example, I think it makes Curtis the most dangerous because he becomes the 4th pin as opposed to Zerha is at the moment. So it does benefit one of them. But yeah, for mine, it's still probably the only way three key forwards is going to work is if we go smaller around them.
What do you think of? Look, I know it was only a small sample size, but I thought Zach Fisher showed a little bit as a small forward, a little bit of zip, like you sort of said. There's a bit of pace. I know he came on when the game was, players were fatigued and had a lot of energy. But look, to me, that looks like his natural position. He was getting front and square to every time the ball was going in long, whereas Costanti, I could count on one hand how many times he's done it this year where he's got front and square. He knows how to play this role. I think this is his role for the rest of the year if he's going to get a game, Jesse.
I 100% agree. Yeah, spot on. I 100% agree. We need to find pace in that forward line.
And he's got pace. That's his.
Yeah, we need to find pace, and we need to find someone who's willing, who can apply pressure. It doesn't need to be a tackle, actually. You know what? I don't actually necessarily care about tackles. I care about the ability to apply pressure and put the opposition into pressure so they turn the ball over, getting it out of the back line. Because we're not doing that at the moment. Darling's probably our best pressure player, and that's an indictment on Constanti, who I still don't think should be in the team. And I'm very solid on that. I still do not think that he is doing nearly enough to be in the team over a Harvey or a Payne. I know we'll get to the VFL, but Payne didn't have a massive game on the weekend. I would still rather him in the team because at least he's going to apply tackles.
Yeah.
I know this sounds bizarre. I would kill for a Kane Turner in the team at the moment who would just apply tackles because we have enough scoring power. We've actually got players now who can score. Like Larky can score, we know that. Zerha can score. Curtis can score. We need to have another tall option, whether or not that's Darling or Finbar or Dawson or whatever. But we have the ability to score goals. What we don't have is the ability to retain the ball inside 50. And I think the problem is, if you sit here and try and draw up your favoured forward line at the moment, you've got Larky, Darling, Finbar. Then you've got Zerha, Curtis. You've only got one spot left for a small to apply pressure, but that then means that Sheasel, Simpkin, Parker, Powell, McKercher are all not playing there. So where are they playing? It doesn't work. So I personally think that the makeup needs to be probably 2 talls with Zerha, with Curtis, and then probably one of the resting mids, and a genuine small pressure quick forward. Ideally, I'd like two and not to have a resting mid down there all the time. But unless we're going to drop two of our mids, I don't know what else we're going to do.
I think once we become a better team, you'll probably see Shees will spend a fair bit more time in it.
Yeah, I agree. And in
that's
better form.
Probably,
he did score goals last year. And he wasn't getting 80% CBAs last year. He was getting 30, 40, 50. He was still playing 50% forward.
Yeah. He kicked 14 goals last year. He's only kicked one so far this year.
Yeah.
So, that's probably been...
It's more form, and I think it's mostly form and just moving him around so much. I don't like the moving him around. I think we just got to settle on a position and just he works himself into form.
I mean, we'll finish on Sheasel now, but I think he did say in that interview with Hamish McLaughlin that he'd rather play forward. And obviously, maybe they've just listened to him and thought, let's just put him forward then. But you shouldn't always listen to the player. Sometimes they don't know what's best for him.
No, well, that's exactly right.
But, what can you do? Mid-season draft coming up, Jesse. 2 selections, I believe. I don't know if we're taking 2, but it sounds like we are.
No, it sounds like we're going to take both.
Yeah, great. Any particular type of player you would like to target? I'm not too sure who they're talking. There's this Archer May or something like that.
Yeah. So I've done a bit of. I actually listened to a good podcast, 2 podcasts today. One, a lot of draft experts around what they think. Look, it does sound like the number one, which is going to go to West Coast, is the clear number one by the length of Flint. Like, we'll come into the team straight away, play an elite distributor, half back line, tall, hybrid type, but elite kick. Sounds perfect, but obviously West Coast are going to take him. The rest are all speculative, which is okay. That's what the mid-season's about. The rest are all speculative. He is probably the only out and out genuine. The only caveat there is Jake Waterman, named to be earlier today, out for the year. So does that make them pivot in terms of their decision to take a forward first? But look, Collingwood are really, really keen on Archer May, who, for anyone who doesn't know, was in the VFL team for Richmond last year, had pretty good form. He left because Richmond went and drafted a whole heap of talls, and obviously they're going to put games into them over a VFL listed player. He went over to the Waffle and he's had really good form. He's played really well. He's young, 22, 23.
I think he's 20 actually.
Well, maybe a bit younger than that. Collingwood are really, really keen, to the point where they've asked him to set an 18-month contract length to try and scare clubs away. Now, Essendon interviewed him yesterday, and North have apparently also spoken to him. So Collingwood are trying to. He's a Collingwood fan as well. So, but I mean, that's not a surprise. 50% of people are.
Exactly.
They're trying. Collingwood seem pretty keen on him, and they're trying to get make him do a contract to make it less appealing. If we didn't take him, I think Essendon absolutely will. I'd be shocked if we didn't take him. He's about high 190s, but he's very agile below his feet. I think it's a very different prospect to a Jacob Edwards in terms of he's not as raw. He's had now 2 years in VFL and then Waffle where he's consistently kicked goals against, AFL, elite, VFL senior bodies. So he's a player who could come in. Yes, he's not going to be playing necessarily around 1, but it's someone who can go into the forward line, would kick goals in our VFL, and who I think they think there's a player there. So that is someone who we're pretty keen on. There's a couple of other names. There is a genuine small forward who's Toner, I think his name is, Sam Toner. I think he's at Coburg or something. He's meant to be an absolute jet. Small, 175 centimetre player or something like that. It might be a different player, but there's a small that apparently is a real jet that we're interested in. Apparently there are some players there who really show some signs. Ultimately, it's how you develop them. But it does sound like we are going to use both picks. As long as we don't use one of the picks to pick up a Daniel Howe.
Which is the 25-year-old Blake Drury.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Charlie Zara.
We don't need that. We need to have a few more throws at the stumps at some play. Like I'm all for getting players into the team who can play now. Like I think some people are frustrated that we took Geordie Payne last year and he hasn't had a look in. I think he's developing nicely, and he was a younger one who's going to take a bit of time. And I think he should have been given an opportunity already, and he got close. He was a travelling emergency. But yeah, I think that there's definitely some options there and some players. I'm pretty sure we'll use both our picks.
As long as it doesn't hinder making them the priority, like a small forward, I still want to see Cooper Harvey into that team, and I don't want to hinder the development of our own players. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't expect much. Do you expect to get anything out of tomorrow? I mean, yeah. Do you expect that we're going to find a play here?
I think we can. I think we're due.
Yeah, okay.
I think we're due.
Yeah, I'm skeptical, Jesse. I'm skeptical.
If Essendon can find Sam Durham,
yeah, I know he's a good player.
And there's a Massimo D'Ambrosio, John Newcomb. There's players there.
Yeah, you got to be lucky, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's a bit of luck involved. Although, yeah, bit of luck involved.
We'll see.
But yeah, we'll see how we go.
Anyways, we'll talk about the exciting stuff. The reserves, Jesse, are convincing winging against the Pies. There's a lot of impressive players, including Will Phillips, 35 touches, 8 clearances, 9 scoring, 1 with 7 tackles. Far too good for this level.
He's going to look great at West Coast next year.
And look, there's a lot of rumours about that. It looks like he's almost gone, Jesse, to be honest with you. I don't think they're going to play him, to be honest with you. I think they've almost written him off. But
yeah, they don't.
At the end of the day, I don't want to give him away for nothing. I'd like their second rounder, to be honest with you.
It sounds like from what the rumours I'm hearing, we're happy with a 4th.
Oh Jesus! I mean, you might as well keep him then.
Then he'll just leave and they'll walk him through to the the preseason draft and take him. We pick one in that. It sounds like North's happy with the 4th rounder. They just don't rate him. They like his character, but they don't rate him as a player. It's one of the most ignorant things I've ever seen. He deserves to be getting a game in that midfield over. I would rather not play Parker, Simpkin.
But, yeah. I don't want to see a 32-year-old. Look, I've got nothing against Luke Parker. He's been very good this year, probably top 3 in our best and fairest. But we've got to move past this. We're not winning games anyway, unless you're in a premiership window or in a top 8. There's no point.
I don't get it. 8 clearances, 7 tackles. Like he is accountable. He applies pressure. I think he's got really clean hands. I like what he can do. And against Essendon, when was the last time he played, he was our best clearance player on the ground. When he wasn't in there, we just got butchered at the clearances. But they don't like him. They don't like him.
You could have played a role on Nick Dacos as well. Like you could have,
like he did last year, and put him to bed for 3 quarters and scored a goal against him, and then they subbed him off. I don't know what to say. All I can say is that he seems like an absolutely ripping bloke, and I reckon he's going to go to West Coast next year and make an absolute fool of us.
And I hope he does, Jesse.
And I hope he does. No, I hope he does. He is the type of player that if he went there and he had a great career, I'd be really happy for him because he seems like a ripping guy, and I think that he does genuinely care about the club, and I think he gives a shit. And yeah, I hope he goes there and has an absolutely fantastic career. And I think he will. I think he'll go there, and he has the potential of being an A-grade midfielder. But he doesn't at our club because the coaches just don't rate him.
And look,
they want showboats rather than effort.
Yeah, look, it's the problem when you draft too many midfielders as well. Eventually, players are going to get squeezed out. Some players, and they're going to get disgruntled, and they have to do what's best for them.
Well, that's the thing. Like he's not in the team at the moment, and we're trying to find him a spot. And then at the same time, we're already saying that there's too many midfielders in the team. So something's got to give.
What about Cooper Harvey? 5 goals. I don't know if he gets a chance, Jesse, either, to be honest with you.
If he does not get a game against West Coast, then he might as well just, I don't know, they've already stamped his papers. Like, can we, his games this year, have been bloody good. He's kicked. How many goals has he kicked for the year? He's averaging something like 2.3 goals a game.
In shitty outdoor conditions.
Yeah, in the bush, in the Arden Street, where there's no cover.
With rain, and everything, all the elements. And
2.3 goals a game. It is very frustrating that he hasn't got a go. I don't know. They obviously they don't rate him whatsoever. I mean, that's probably the only way of putting it. It's a frustrating one. I've been saying it all year. I copped a bit of flack earlier in the year because people didn't rate him, and I think people realised that he actually can play. I mean, I'll put it this way: he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's the 7th highest goal scorer in the VFL this year.
Yeah. It's not bad, is it, for a small forward?
For a small forward, the ones above him couldn't tell you who they are, but I think they're tools.
Yeah, is it McLaughlin? There's Lee McMahon up there from Carlton.
He's one who they reckon will get a look in. But yeah, Lee McMahon, Brody McLaughlin. There's Gregorowski or whatever he is, one of the GWS guys who just can't get a game.
Apparently he's highly rated, and teams were after him last year in the trade period, but they didn't want to let him go. So
yeah. So look, he's if they don't play him. You can't tell me that he wouldn't have a better game than Constanti.
You know that. I think a lot of our supporters know that. The people probably listening.
But I don't think we'll ever know because they're not going to give him a go.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it at the moment. Eddie Ford's probably another guy that's moved into the back line. 29 touches, 14 intercepts. Just give this guy a chance, Jesse.
No, they won't. No. He'll be good at another club next year as well because he'll get picked up and he'll play down defense and make us look like idiots again. Look, I've said it for 2 years. He should be playing football. I've said it for 2 years.
He's in the best 22.
He's in the best 22, and he has been for the last 2 years. I've said it, I think, every podcast that he should be in the team. He along with Phillips, are probably my main two. And I rate him. I think he looks good all over the ground. And I'm glad that they've tried something down back. But 29 disposals, the amount of intercepts that he looked good defensively. And he's a pest. Bit of Sicily about him. He annoys the opposition. I like that. You cannot tell me that he would be playing against West Coast. Good opportunity because they've got no forwards now. You put him down there. You tell me that he's going to offer anything less than Luke McDonald or Aiden Core?
Or even Caleb Daniel.
Because you don't need to pay Aiden Core against West Coast. Because you've got Oscar Allen, who you can put Pink to. They've got no other tools. They'll probably play Bailey Williams or one of their ruckmen.
Yeah,
so, okay, Comden goes to him. You got Liam Ryan, one of the Swalls has to work out on him. But this is a perfect opportunity for him to play a game. I don't think they'll play him, and it's just going to be a debacle. Because Aiden Core might as well retire next year. It's just he just looks like a player, but it's just another one who they don't seem to rate. It's frustrating.
I worry about these blokes that don't get a game because teams will look at this and think, well, if they can't get a game at North, they're not going to get a game at us. Where you might find a Mason Wood, who's probably one of the best wingmen in the competition. So,
that's a prime example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, the only thing I can say about the seconds, because we've just talked about some depressing notes of players playing well who we don't think will get opportunities. I liked Luke Urquhart's game.
But he's playing midfield. I don't know what they were doing. They're playing him half forward there for about 6 weeks.
Which made no sense to me.
You drafted him as a midfielder. Playing
he had 23 disposals. He kicked 1 goal, 6 tackles.
Yeah.
He played defensive midfielder and he could have scored 2 goals. He was the 4th ranked player on the ground. He's one who I actually wouldn't mind playing down back as a lockdown defender because of his defensive line. I don't know why they played him as a forward. That was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. If you're going to try him anywhere, you'd play him down back. But I think he had a positive game. Talago.
Dersma?
Dersma. 20 disposals, played a bit of wing, played a bit of half back. Looked pretty good. I like him when he's got ball in hand. Just got to get the ball in his hand. Taylor Goad probably had his best game. 19
Yeah.
disposals,
He really
29
did.
hit out, 7 clearances. He looked dominant. I think the guy he was up against, to be fair to him, was probably from my local bush, from the local bush
Oh no,
league
he
or
was
something.
rubbish. Yeah, but
Yeah,
you
but
can. You still got to do it
yeah,
against players.
100%. Because last year he wasn't. So this year, he showed some really good signs. So I was happy with his game. I think the main one for me, and it was such a small sample size because he didn't do a lot. He had the 8 disposals, but Braden George, 3 goals in 2 minutes. He showed in 2 minutes why he should be on a list.
Mm.
I was listening to people today when they were talking about who each club should take in the mid-season draft, and they were talking about us and small forwards. And one of the draft experts goes, what's funny? He goes, I still think North Melbourne has the best small forward that we've never seen. And he goes, I still rank Braden George as the generational, not just that draft, the generational small forward. And he goes, and it's just that he's been absolutely cruelled by injuries.
And that's what might hurt his career too, Jesse. I mean,
Like-
it's very hard to see players come back from 2 knee
yeah.
reconstructions. There's, the player that's got that potential, it can affect him in other ways. And yeah,
It was good to see him kick 3 and 3. Hopefully he can get a good run at it because you're obviously not going to play him for AFL, maybe until later in the year. But if he can build up his fitness base, start getting, teens in terms of disposals and kicking goals, they're more likely to give him a go than Cooper.
Yeah. Yeah, look, possibly.
Mind you, can I also add that Cooper, now I'm going to get fired up on Cooper again. It's not like he was just kicking little easy goals. He was kicking him from the freaking boundary.
Yeah.
40 out in the wind on the boundary. It was just...
he's very classy inside that 450. He's got a lot of class, a lot of natural instinct, like his old man. Like he seems to make the right decision. At the end of the day, if you're not going to play him, you should have just delisted him last year.
Exactly. My God, Alex Pearce overturned his 3-match ban. We need the Freo lawyer.
Oh Jesus,
we need the Freo lawyer. I don't know how. That was worse act than.
It wasn't even close as the poor Curtis thing's a debacle, a joke. But yeah, that's to get away with. I don't understand that, but that's a bit of a strange one. Anyway, Jesse, before we finish, what do you hope to see in the second half of the year with the men's team, the senior team, I should say? Is it about giving opportunities to some of these players we talked about? Is it about getting wins now? We've got to start getting wins because we don't want to give Richmond too high of a pick.
Look, it's a bit of both. We need to do a bit of both. We need to do a bit of both. I'd like to see us doing a bit more of. I think a way of putting it is I actually, and a lot of people are critical of them. I actually like what Brad's doing at Essendon at the moment. His hand is kind of forced by the fact that they've got the longest injury list I've ever seen. And I think every single one of their key defenders is injured. But if you look at, like the average games on the weekend, for example. So the average age, we were 25.2. They're 25.4. They're identical to us on experience. So that's where they're at from an age profile perspective. They played a kid on the weekend, kicked 3 goals in his first game. That's not going to happen every game, but still. Kakau's been pretty average, but they keep pumping games into him, and I think that's a positive. Your caddy, he's been up and down, but they keep pumping games into him. Zach Reed went down with injury, but he was looking really, really good. They've had an opportunity to still be competitive. They're pretty similar to us in terms of statistically this year, defensively, offensively. Better than us defensively, but maybe a little bit weaker than us offensively. And they've been a bit more lucky. I think on expected scores, they've won a few games that they shouldn't have. But either which way, they're able to get games into some of their kids. They're not wasting. I don't look at their team and go, they're wasting games on X player. No. I can't say the same thing about us. Yeah. I think that's the biggest frustrating thing is you look at your Aiden Cause, you look at Luke Parker getting midfield minutes, and you look at Luke McDonald down back, and you go, well, there's some prime opportunities Like, you don't need Luke McDonald down back if you've got Caleb Daniel, who's meant to be someone you brought into the club for leadership.
Even, I suppose, like Jack Darling. Should
Yeah.
he be playing every week?
Like, I've got no issue him playing every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But mix him and Finbar up. Give Dawson a go. Give anything a go.
Or give another smaller go. I don't know.
I almost think that the club is so worried about not getting those wins and the fallout of not getting those wins that they're not prepared to pay the kids. And I actually think that you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. You play the kids, you build up some excitement, and I think you can actually win games. Because look what happens. You give Hardiman an opportunity for once rather than just doing what you're doing with him. And he's taken it with both hands. You can't tell me that there's not kids in that VFL team who will not take an opportunity with both hands.
No.
So for me, I would prioritise giving some of them games. If it means we lose games that we could have won playing core and whatever, then so be it. Because I think that there's more of a chance of winning games taking that risk than there is of, losing games. We might lose games badly as opposed to honourably. But you know what? You've put an extra game into a Dawson, into a Cooper, Cooper Harvey, into a Payne. You got to get the games into these kids, because otherwise, they're just going to be sitting there next year. What are we going to do? Because you're going to have all these older blokes who are just another year older, so they're not as good anymore, and you haven't developed any of your kids.
No, and you might find something with Will Phillips that, he plays on the next time we play Collingwood or whatever, we play someone decent that's got a decent midfielder. He plays on a Nick Dacos and, tags him out of the game and, but you might, and like you said, you might find something as well. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to win games, and we're not winning games anyway. At the end of the day, I think you might have even said off air that we might only win 2 or 3 more games for the year. And that's probably even best case scenario, to be honest with you.
100%. 100%. Like, realistically, we've got Richmond, we've got West Coast. If we lose to West Coast with their injuries that they've got piling up now, I understand it's over there, but it's not at their home ground. We're going to be there for a few days beforehand. We should acclimatise to it. If we lose to West Coast, something is seriously wrong. And when we play Richmond again, if we lose to them at down Tassie, something is very, very wrong. Those two games are non-negotiable wins, which means we're on 4.5. At a minimum, we need to find 1 more to get to 5.5. But realistically, we need to find at least 2.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're finding those 2 wins from. Now, devil's advocate is we played well against Port. We played well against Brisbane. We should hopefully play well against a couple of the other decent teams. And be able to steal at least 1 win.
Well, we've got to play Carlton again. They're not flying. I know they smashed.
No, but they weren't flying last time. They were after they played us.
Yeah, I know. But look, different set of circumstances.
To be fair, they smashed us Good Friday last year, and we played them in the second game, and I actually think we should have won.
Yeah.
So,
that's right.
Look, I think there's an opportunity. There's still an opportunity, and I think we're not playing terrible football. But yeah, in my mind, we're going to be aiming for at least 6.5 wins.
I mean, you got St Kilda as well.
Well, there you go. Well, yeah, sorry. So a perfect one would be, at a minimum, you want to beat St Kilda, Richmond, and West Coast. That gets you up to 5.5. I think that is the minimum pass mark.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. So, and hopefully, at least give opportunities for some of these players that, have been consistent performers throughout the first half of the year in the VFL. I mean, Costante's going to be on your list next year. You can put him in the VFL for 4 to 6 weeks. It's not going to make any difference. It's not going to hurt your chances of winning or anything like that. So we'll have to wait and see, Jesse. Otherwise, it could be a frustrating second half of the year as well. Yeah. We'll have to wait and see. Any final words for you, Jesse? I know it's been a long one, mate. Over an hour now.
No, all good, mate. All good.
Well, no, thanks for so much for coming on. Hasn't always been easy this first half of the year, but I appreciate your efforts so far, Jesse. I'll see you second half of the year.
Thank you.
No, thank you, mate. And thank you to all your listeners as well. I'll try and be back later this week. Give a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, tell your mates and whoever about it. That's it from me. Bye for now, and go Roos.